Hi everybody, I'm out at the fig bushes, so what I'm doing right now is propagating some new trees off of the mother bush here. So I'm going to walk around here and show you too what we did last year. These were done last fall, and basically we just put this bottle around the plant, the roots grow in here, and we can cut it off and have the new self-sustaining plant. You can call this propagation or air layering, whichever one you like to call it. So I'm going to show you the steps on how to do that. Hi, are you helping me plant figs? Are you having fun planting the fig plants?
Yeah.
Is it fun?
Those ones, the tiny ones.
Yeah, do you want to make some new ones?
These ones.
Yeah, are you going to help me?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started.
Big ones? Big ones?
Yeah. Alright, step one, get some bottles. So, one of the very few times we get Gatorade is when we need more propagation bottles. They're right about the perfect size for our fig bushes. We don't like to propagate these big, large stalks here. We tend to look for vertical branches, sort of like this one, that I already have a bottle around. Vertical branches that are, maybe about 3/4 of an inch thick. And you can propagate the new growth like this, the brand new growth that's green instead of hardened bark. I don't usually do that, but I have tried before and it didn't go too well, so I don't usually do that. So step one is to prepare the bottles, and I'll show you how to do that. We'll prepare the bottles, I'll go get some soil, and then we'll come back and find some good branches to use. Does that sound like a good plan? Okay. Preparing the bottles is pretty easy. So what we do is I just saw off the cap here, and then I take a razor blade and circle out and take out the bottom, and then I take a razor blade and saw it right down the middle. So what it looks like is the small hole where the cap is, the large hole on the bottom, and it's slit down the middle so that it can pry apart and bend around a branch. So you also need some tape to hold this slit shut once you get it around to start propagating it, and we're going to show you how all to go about preparing the branches. We have acquired our root growth simulation matter, also known as manure, and we're going to prepare the branches. We found a good branch right here that we're going to use, and I'll do this one on camera, and I'll find another one. You know what, I'll probably just do that one right there off camera. So we'll start with this one. I'll get a ladder and we'll put that on. So how we're going to do that is this is going to just bend around that plant. We're going to add some tape to hold it shut, fill it with soil, and we also have to do a little bit of work to the branch to get it ready. And you may need pruning shears depending on where your branch is located. So off we go to get a ladder. Now that we have everything we need and we have prepared the bottles, we're going to get the branch ready. This branch is in a good position. The bottle will set on here just fine. So what we need to do is give it a couple spots to let the roots grow. Now, I don't like to do a big stripe all the way down the side. I like to put little nicks like that. You can see the green underneath, and peel a little bit of it back, and the root will come right out of there. And that one's a little bit small. I like to try and make them a little bit bigger. But really you can just take the tip of your knife, don't stab into the plant, but peel it back a little bit and leave that bark flap on there. That's perfectly fine to leave on there. Yeah, so just do that several times up and down the plant. And maybe put about, you don't need a ton, maybe just put a dozen on there, and that should be fine. So I'll do that, and then after that's done, we'll take this and put this on. I do have to set the camera down to reach on the other side and add the nicks though. So I've made all my nicks, and now I'll put the bottle on. You just take where you slit and pop it right over, like that. Now that is all surrounded and it's not going to go anywhere. When we first started doing these, we did leave the cap on, and I soon realized that that was not going to work because the cap is made of thicker plastic than the bottle, and you have to really bend it around, and it tears up the whole base of the plant and everything. So that was not working, so I started just cutting the caps off. It leaves a little bit of an opening here that soil falls out of, but it's worth not tearing up the entire branch because I can just put some tape there and that seals it off just fine. Also, if you're looking to do a bigger branch and get a bigger root system, I tried to do one, but it never really went well, so I just left it. I tried to do this big branch. I put a 1-gallon jug over it, and the jug was just too flimsy, it fell apart. But you can still see the roots growing right down to the branch. Several. But that was only on there for a short time. The jug fell apart and did not work, so I didn't actually go through with that. And that's really the best part. If you decide for some reason you don't want to do the propagation, you can just peel it off. The roots will either dry up or stay there or turn into leaves or something, and it doesn't affect the branch at all. And if you're leaving it on through the season, you still get a bunch of figs off the same branch you're propagating. So now all that's left to do is tape this together and fill it up with soil and water it, and then we just wait till the roots grow. Once the roots grow, you just pull it off and chop it off and plant it, and I'll probably make another video of me doing that as well. So it's very simple. That's all you have to do. I'll go ahead and do this one and then show you what it looks like once they're all done. Okay, they're done. I've finished up that one. I re-upped this one that was pre-existing, and I put that one on as well. So those are 3 on there, and they're full of soil and taped on just fine. Here's some tips about propagating them. If you want to compact the soil when you're pushing it in there, go ahead. But I found that if you compact it in the jars, especially when they're at an angle like this one is, the water just kind of puddles up here and flows out, taking most of the soil with it. Secondly, you want to keep the plant centered in the jar. That way you get even root growth. Third, you want to try and keep the bottles as straight up and down as possible. That way the soil doesn't spill out and the water goes down instead of out as well. So those are 3 tips that might help you make your propagations a little bit better. Ours usually take about 8 weeks. If I would have done these a month ago, they'd probably only take 6 weeks. And then you can cut them off and stick them in buckets. And when you stick them in buckets, you are usually going to have the leaves all die off, and then it comes back. So you've got this stage where you're building the root system, and then you're transplanting it almost. So it kind of dies down, settles down for 2 weeks, and then perks back up. But we've only had 1 die on us during that second transplanting stage, so you should be fine to do that. So there you go. And these do not require a ton of water because they're still getting their sap supply from the main plant, which is the big advantage of air layering. So they don't require a ton of water, but you do need to keep the soil wet so the roots do want to go and get in there. That pretty much covers it. So go ahead and give it a try. And of course you don't have to use Gatorade bottles. That's just what we found works best. Water bottles are too narrow, milk jugs are too flimsy. Some other ones take up too much space, and on most other ones the caps are too small. So Gatorade seems to work best. There you have it. Hope it helped. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Wait, don't go yet. I have something to show you I totally forgot about for some reason. This is where I keep all my transplants and such. But this is a fig plant that I successfully air layered. You can see where I cut off a dead stem there, and basically you can picture it. Just pull this out, stick a bottle around the root system, and attach it to the tree, and that's what it looked like. I cut it off and stuck it in here, and as you can see, it's doing just fine. This particular plant had a very strong root system. It did very well. This was done during the prime time where everything's leafing out, so it did have a strong root system. So it did not do the die off and come back phase. They usually do, but almost every time they come back. Like I said, we've only had 1 that died off and didn't come back. And it's still sitting in the pot with the other ones, just because I haven't needed the pot yet. But once I cut those off, I'll pull it out and replace it with a good one. So we sell these. We also replant them, give them away, whatever you want to do. But ours make so many figs. They're really old plants. Here's their size from way back here. They're very old plants, but they produce a ton of figs. We probably get close to 13 gallons a year. That might be a little much, but I'm thinking about it. That's probably about right. And then there's 2 successful ground layering. Ground layering is the same as air layering, except, guess what? On the ground. So instead of putting a bottle, this is just an example, you'd pull all this away, dig a little trench in the ground, put some notches, weigh this down, and pin it in, and the roots would grow in the ground, and once it's done, you just cut it off. You can dig this up or leave it right where it is. And this one was a successful ground layer, and it was actually totally volunteer. We were just out here pruning it, and we saw it, and it took it off, planted it there, and it did fine. Alright, it's a couple weeks later, and you can see our propagations have just taken off. All of them. Those 3, and then also this one over here. So we're going to cut 2 of them and transplant them. All you have to do is cut it off at the base here, get rid of all this tape, and then we'll get a bucket with some compost and show you what to do next. Okay, so our first propagation here is all ready. We're just going to peel the tape off of it. And what we do after we get the tape off is just very carefully open up the bottle and try not to disturb the roots. Now if it has a good strong root system, which this one is sort of in between, you can actually just peel this back and slide it down off. There. So most of the roots are on this side, which was the side that was facing downhill, and that's because that's where all the water sat. So this other side does not have a lot of roots, only a few. So it's most important to be careful that you're not going to damage that root cluster when you put it in the pot. So let me grab some soil here and we'll do just that. Alright, so we have some fresh compost. It's nice and saturated. And now we're just going to stick this down inside. And let me do it like this. Okay. So for this, we're going to take the pot, dig out the hole inside, of course. There's the nice root cluster. Set it inside, not all the way down, and then just compact the dirt around it. And then usually I try and break up the roots a little bit if it's root bound, but this one wasn't really root bound. It looks like it'll spread out just fine once we finish planting it. So now I just gotta fill it up the rest of the way. And this one is a little top heavy because it is a big branch. So it will be fragile until we get all the roots to take grip into the soil. But now we've just got to hose down the plant, and I like to prune off a lot of these branches and definitely a lot of the figs. I'll leave some figs on in case the plant takes right away. But usually I try and take, like, this is fresh growth, so we want to leave it. But down here, this old growth, that'll come off. The ends of this will come off. We really want to take off anything that's not going to help it to grow better in the pot. So I'm going to grab the pruning shears, then we'll start cutting away. Okay, so as far as pruning goes, we're just going to look for older branches and take them off. There's one down in here. that one can come off. So let's clip that. Now, it did have some new growth on it, but that's not a big deal. There's plenty more, and this tree isn't dead, so. Continue to take off pretty much anything even the slightest bit unnecessary, so. This whole shoot can come off. It's very difficult to use those one-handed. Okay, so anything like that, I'll finish shaving it off and then show you what it looks like when I'm all done. Here's what it looks like after the pruning, and you may think I've thinned out a lot, but really you need to, because if I would have left that big bush on here to grow, it needs to put all its work right now into making a good strong root system. If it's trying to spend all its time ripening these figs, it's not going to get very far and become a nice strong tree. So now is not when we want it to produce. Now, like I said before, a lot of times this stuff will die off and then come back. I'm hoping this one doesn't, because if it doesn't die off and come back, these will actually continue to ripen. But if the tree dies, then the roots grow and it comes back, then this will all fall off and we won't get any figs till next year. Alrighty, it's done. There you go, fresh fig plant, and we'll probably update you here in a couple weeks how the rest of the propagations went. I'm probably going to do a plant life or a botany update video soon enough. So there you go.